Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and well, it's been a little while, but we have a reel in the bag, or actually reel in the bags project that Chris from Virginia sent in. I guess Chris got started on this and something probably didn't go according to plan, and he asked me if I could help him out. Well, that's kind of what I do here at Second Chance Tackle. We give reels a second chance, and we certainly want to make sure that this one gets a second chance because it's a rather unusual Penn reel. It's the Penn Mag Power. It's the 980, which is in the middle of the sequence of the reel, and well, it's ready to go back together. So I like this reel a lot. It's got a magnetic control on it for casting. You'll see on this side it's a screw operated piece. It's nothing fancy, but on the back end you can notice the magnet that's in that side case, and that magnet's going to exert a certain amount of control on the spool, and that's going to slow it down or speed it up depending on how much you put the tension on that. And well, that's kind of the fancy part about this. The rest of it is that it's a relatively stock Penn reel, and we should be able to get this one back and fishing again, provided, of course, that Chris included all of the pieces and parts that came off the reel. A lot of times I'll get folks that'll tell me, oh yeah, I got them all, and then, well, you get started and you find out, well, you don't have them all. Well, one of the ways to find out what you're in for if you're doing a reel in a bag project is to go ahead and get the schematic for the reel. This one I got from, well, it used to be penparts.com, but now it's mysticparts.com. It's a complete burst diagram of the fishing reel, and it'll tell you a little bit about what to expect and the sequences and the orders and the orientations of the pieces and parts, so that when you go to put it back together again, you have, well, a game plan, or at least the schematic plan of how to do that. And that's what I'm going to be referencing here. Although a lot of it is, at this point, it's institutional knowledge. I kind of know how these things work and what's in place and what isn't in place. But again, that's somewhat of a little bit unusual reel. And to the extent that I may need a reference point, that's a good reference point to have, that schematic diagram. Well, let's just take a look at some of the things that we have here. I like to build these back up in sub-assemblies and get as many pieces together as I can when I get a reel in a bag project in. It's sort of a process of elimination. You start with what you can do, and you work your way around it until you, well, you got it all done. So the first sub-assembly, we should be able to put this plate back in. Guess we have to find the side plate screws for it, but should have, it's got a spoke here. I'm looking for the centering point there. Okay, with a little bit of effort, you should be able to press all of that in. We'll find the side plate screws to that in just a moment, but I'm noticing that I have a little bit of film and the like on this, so I'm just going to take a moment here with some rod and reel cleaner and a scrubby pad just to ride over that, see if we can't eliminate that, clean it up a little bit while we're doing this. I'm also noticing that this button is pretty free-flowing here. We'll see if that has an issue there. We'll go back to the schematic and check that. All right, just a little bit of rod and reel cleaner, kitchen scrubby, paper towel will do the cleanup there. A little bit of a shine to it. And made in the USA. I'm not quite sure when this was made in the USA, but it was. All right, that's the side plate, missing the screws. This is the side plate we have to rebuild. This is the bridge. So we're going to start by removing the star adjuster, which was put back on the bridge because we're missing that whole gear set. And if I can, I'd like to poke this pin out for the gear sleeve. And if you just keep working it, you should be able to, there we go, push it out, and eventually you're going to clear the shoulder. To be able to remove this by pulling up. You want to do that because you want to make sure that the post is clean and free of debris. And again, I don't know how much Chris did or didn't do on this, so you don't want to assume that he serviced that and put this back, if in fact he didn't. You've got the reel apart, you might as well take care of all of the issues there. Just a light coating of grease And we can take the gear sleeve, a little cotton swab, just run it inside, make sure that you clean out the dirt and greases in that. Go ahead and put the gear sleeve back on. And sometimes you can grab a little soft blow hammer like this and just kind of tap that pin back in. If you do, make sure that you clear the shoulder here on that. All right, it spins nicely. If you didn't want to remove this, if it was a normal service, if you were confident that this turned free and easy, you can put a drop of oil in the top. That's actually where the handle screw goes in, and the handle screw usually says oil on it, and yes, you can remove that and put a drop of oil in there for your efforts. All right, this is the point of the reel in the bag project that gets interesting, because the big parts are off to the side, but the important parts, which build everything, well, they're in here, right? So hopefully they're in here. So we're going to look for the main gear and the drag washer assembly next, if we're working on the bridge as the sub-assembly. And this is always where I get a little nervous, because there's springs and things that, well, they can kind of get in trouble on the way in and out. Looks like we have some fresh drag washers. We have the tension washers. Oh, we have a new gear sleeve. I wonder if he wanted me to put that in. I guess he did, because that's a Cortez conversion. So we'll have to back off on this. Probably should have initially. Have the washer for that Cortez conversion. There are a whole bunch of metals and things in here, so I'm going to guess that I'm going to be doing this upgrade stuff as we do that. All right, let me shut the camera off for a moment. We'll reverse some of the steps that we just did here. We'll come back and we'll put those new pieces in. Okay, well, we're back at the point where we had to push that out. Now we can pull up and, well, a little bit tight on this. So the Cortez conversion is normally higher quality parts, not that these were bad parts. They're usually something along the lines of stainless steel as opposed to brass or otherwise. They've become popular in a couple of different models, and haven't seen one for this yet, but doesn't mean I haven't seen them. All right, we'll just take that and put that off to the side. We have the gear stem now. We don't have to clean the inside of this one because it's newly manufactured, but I will go back and re-grease that post then, because whatever grease I got on there probably just got pulled out when I pulled the other piece off. I'll just go light coating of grease there. Don't overload it. If you overload that, the grease will spill over. And if it spills over, generally what happens is it dries and becomes quite an issue. All right, here's your new Cortez conversion piece. That's going to go over the top. Now we'll take that pin. That pin is going to hold the gear sleeve to the post. So get it started. Again, you can tap that in with a soft blow hammer, or if you want, you can pull it in with the pliers. So we'll show you both ways. I'll try and pull it in with the pliers on this one. I just have a channel lock pliers that I opened up a little bit, pulled it. Make sure you want to clear that. And then the first thing I saw in one of these bags, or not the first thing, but one of the things I saw in the bag, and we're going to try and keep order to this because there's pieces all over the place. We have a ring washer that goes beneath the main gear. Go ahead and take that. That piece goes on. That doesn't get lubricated. It's a hard washer. Slips over your gear sleeve, and it gets mounted like that. Next, we'll just check the main gear. This appears to be a stainless main gear. Most of the time these are in pretty good condition, but just take a hard brush, pull through the teeth, and I like to put a paper towel underneath it when I do that so that I can catch any debris that might be coming out of there. Check all the teeth, make sure that they're uniform. I was doing that as I was kind of working along with that. Take your brush, get a good amount of grease onto that. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if you want to leave them in the comments section, I do try to answer the questions. The questions can be broad and don't have to be relative to this reel. If I know the answer, I'll try and get it to you. If I don't know the answer, I'll try and point you in the right direction. All right, we've greased the outer part, so we slide the gear over the shaft. Now we have 3 new washers. This is a 6-washer setup. So it's going to go, let's get the old ones are in good condition, and they're actually the same washers. We'll just put them back there so that Chris has some spares. We'll put that off to the side. And what you do on the Penn setups is you have a series of metals and a series of fabrics, and it lines up like this. The first one in is going to be the HT100 washer, followed by what's called a keyed washer. There's 2 of those. They have flat sides. The middle washer is always the eared washer in that 6-drag setup, and then the fabrics alternate between them. The HT100s you can run dry, but I prefer to put a little bit of grease on it, and I'm using Cal's Universal Drag Grease for that. I'm going to dip it in the grease. I'm going to use my gloved hand to work the grease into it, and then I'm going to wipe off any excess. You don't want to leave excess on drag washers. It's just going to squeeze up and out. That one gets seated into the main gear. Then we take our first metal that goes in, and we repeat that 2 more times with the fabric washers. Again, after a while you kind of get it to the point where you know you want to get grease on there, but you want to be able to see the cross hatching in the washer. And now we have the one with the 2 points. That's called an eared washer. That goes in the middle. One more. Again, see the cross hatching. That sits up top. And then our second keyed washer. And then we have this rounded washer. That's the bell washer that goes on top. Now he gave me 2 more of these. I'm looking at the diagram now because I'm not quite sure how that runs, but we have fabric, 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 metal, bell. Okay, so we're pretty much straight up there. So then on the other side of this has one that goes below the star adjuster, and I guess we can put the other one on top of that star adjuster. That's your bridge. Okay, before we do our bridge, we want to load in the other pieces to this. So we need to go back to the parts tray here and see what we can get. I'm going to take this, get this out of the basket now, and put that back in. So the Cortez conversions usually are stainless, and they're usually for reels where you're taking a beating on the original parts. And this reel seems like the original parts, or at least the parts that were in here that we are replacing, are in pretty good condition. So we're going to make sure Chris gets all of those back so that he can, well, reuse them if he needs to. All right, in here, it looks like, it's funny after a while you do this, it's good. It looks like all the parts are there. It might be hard for the untrained eye, but it looks like all the pieces and parts are there. The only thing I'm seeing a little bit, seems to be a little bit short of is side plate screws. So I hope that we'll be able to find them somewhere. Okay, let's rebuild the side plate. We have 2 springs which always get intertwined somehow. They seem to find each other and are problematic to get them apart. Let's see if we can do that. There we go, we got lucky there. Those 2 springs go in the cavities in the side plate. Just like that. We have a bearing in the back. We want to oil that bearing before we go any further. After we install that next piece, it'll be almost impossible to get any kind of oil in there. Here's your pinion gear. It's clean. You want to make sure that you check all the teeth. Same thing, orientation and the like. A little bit of grease onto that. Grease the teeth and grease the slot behind the teeth. That's where that yoke is going to ride. This is the yoke. You want to get grease on the face, on both sides, and on the internal slot. And you can insert the pinion gear onto the yoke, and the hump of the yoke faces up, and the slot of the pinion gear, that slot faces in. When you do that, center the holes in the yoke over the holes in the spring. Go ahead and get your jack, and then the jack slides over the pinion gear and sets like that. That's your installation of the yoke, the pinion gear, the springs, and the jack. Okay, go ahead and grab the next part up. Would be to install the bridge. So there's going to be 2 threaded screws and 2 partially threaded screws. Those are your 4 screws. The ones with the partial thread are going to go up top through the springs. The ones with the fully threaded screws are below. To install the bridge, you press down on the yoke assembly and you insert kind of backwards so that the bottom of the bridge is facing down. Then you rotate that to hold this assembly in place, basically perpendicular to where it needs to wind up. You want the next screw to be a fully threaded bridge screw. I think I have side plate screws here as well. We're going to have to work on that. This should be your fully threaded screw. Bring that up and through the side case over here. Next, you want to get your anti-reverse dog and seat that in so that you have a cavity right here in that side plate. Then get your anti-reverse spring. This is the one I was concerned about in terms of maybe not being in the package, because, well, it just gets lost from time to time. It's an easy enough piece to lose. And we will install that by putting one part onto the ridge here, and then with my finger I'm going to compress it so that it seats into the sidewall. That's how that spring gets loaded. You can see it inside the cavity there. Then rotate the bridge to align with the stud and where that screw would come through, and do a partial turn on that screw just to get it started, because you have to make sure that you can get the other screws in before tightening them down. I like to go opposites, so a partially threaded screw should go up through the top of the other one. Get it started. Once you feel it starting, you can bring the fully threaded screw below. And then we have one more partially threaded that goes up and under the spring on the other side. And this is why I mentioned that you leave them loose, because sometimes they don't align quite right. In this case, we have the yoke is just pushing up a little bit, so you need to work through that. And just take your time and be patient. Eventually you will feel it set. It just set there. Okay, when all 4 are in, go back and kind of reverse the position. Now, I don't know what happened to this reel, but something happened to this reel, because I'm noticing as we're doing this that the bottom of the side plate here is cracked. Now, that won't interfere with the performance of this reel, but it may let some water in. That could be a problem downstream, so to speak. There's a collar that goes next. That goes inside. Well, that's tight to that conversion there, that's for sure, but it's in. That's okay. And now we said we probably would put one of these underneath the handle and one of them on top of the handle. The schematic shows the one underneath. If you're looking at the schematic here, it shows the one between the star adjuster and the handle. And if you come back over here to the stack, I think this one here, 18A, is the bell washer. So we may have an extra. We'll see if we get the clearance with the star adjuster here. We may or may not, I'm not sure. But that's the next piece in. Yeah, we're not going to have that clearance, so we're going to go by the schematic. We're going to pull the tension washer. We'll put the star adjuster back on. And then the schematic says this belongs between the star adjuster and the handle. The handle has the tie-down screw in here, so that needs to be removed in order to complete the assembly there. And I think for the purposes of making this a little bit easier, we're going to go ahead and put the screws back in this thing. Again, I'm a little bit confused as to which ones belong where. We have 3 long, and we have 4 offsets. That says I'm missing a screw. Okay, well, I just went back. I shut the camera off for a minute, went back to check to make sure that the screws were available, and they are. It was stuck in the bag. All right, so the 2 small ones, I'm thinking go into this reel seat ones. I'm going to do the back side first, then we'll load the spool. Then we'll load the mains. Okay, just continuing to tighten these down. This is the 4th on this side. And it does appear that the holes are wider on the other side to accept that offset screw there. All right. Okay, let's turn our attention to the spool then. A little bit of grease onto the shaft that goes into the bearing. Make sure you clear your issues with any kind of line that may get trapped in the side plate. Insert the spool into that bearing, and now we can put our other side plate on. Want to make sure that you get some grease onto the shaft that's going to go through the pinion gear. Let's go ahead. I like to put that into the off position, or free spool on position, if you will, off engagement. So that pulls it back. And let's go ahead and merge those. I think there's a pin on this one too. Yeah, you want to line the pin up with this hole here. That's going to be the stable point there. There you go. All right. So now we have the 4 screws. I'm going to just check to make sure they're all the same size. If there's a shorter one, we'll go on the bottom, but these all appear to be the same size. So we'll just put them in each of the cavities and we'll start tightening down here. Once you've positioned those 4 screws, go ahead and tighten them down. May need a bigger screwdriver for this one. This one's got a wider slot in it. That's 2. There's 3. And 1 on the other side. Okay, well, we've just reinstalled the handle by putting the handle screw on and the hold fast screw there. There's only one thing left. Give it a test. So what we want to do is go into free spool first, pull the lever back, and make sure that your spool is spinning nicely. If you want to adjust the spool, there are several adjustments on this reel. The first one, of course, is the side plate spool adjuster. It's got a bearing in there. Back it off if you want to spin more freely. Tighten it up if you want to control it a little bit more. You can center it by using that one and the bearing on this side. This side has screw access. You can tighten it to push the spool away from the handle. You can loosen it to drive the spool back that way and tighten on this side. So you can center the spool that way. And then finally, you got an adjustment here for the mag braking. I believe you turn it in, it's more. If you turn it out, it's less. But that's your mag power control on that. All right, so let's put it into gear, give it a turn, and there you go. We've gone from the bag to a reinstall of all of the pieces with an upgrade on that gear shaft by Cortez Conversions, and it's back ready to go fishing again. And we're glad to help Chris out there with getting that reel put back together again. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, again, please subscribe if you want to see more. And if you do, use that notification button. Special thanks to all of the subscribers. If you haven't subscribed so far, please do so. And to everyone, please thank a first responder or essential personnel for everything they do. And have a great day. Good luck fishing, and hope to see you soon. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.